Hi there, Prairie Plant Girl here. Today we're talking leaves and why I think they are one of the best resources to have in your garden. So let's get some of these fall leaves over to my storage and we'll talk about them. Well, that's certainly a lot of leaves. It's not even all the leaves that have been collected this fall. So these leaves in this pile here are all leaves that my neighbors and my parents have collected for me because they all know I'm a little crazy and I love fall leaves. I have also collected a few leaves out of my yard. I use them all year long in my compost bin to make compost, nice, rich, earthy compost that I can use in my garden. Because as we all know, compost is great for building your soil, whether you have sandy soil that drains too fast, or you have hard compacted clay soil that it stays too wet and soggy and it's too hard to work in. Compost will help amend that soil and make it a much easier soil to work in that holds moisture at the right level and gives you good nutrients. Compost also feeds your soil, has lots of great microorganisms and nutrients in it, and it feeds the soil, and the plants then can take that good nutrition out of the soil and compost up into the plants and produce nice healthy plants, whether you're growing them for foliage, flowers, or vegetable and fruit production. It's all good. So building my compost pile is the number one reason I like to have lots of fall leaves in my yard. So it's way too muddy over here to really bring you in close, but back in here under all this twigs and stick mess that I have built up is a pile of leaves. And I just leave these leaves to just rot and decompose on their own. I have them in a little contained area. They can get some moisture coming in from rains and snow melting. But there is a little bit of a cover on so they're not getting completely sopped. It's in the shade, it's back here. I have a cherry tree here, there's a maple tree behind me. I have 9 barks. It's very shaded back here. So they're not getting dried out too fast, so that keeps them breaking down nicely and not drying out too fast so that I can have leaf mold. Now some people think leaf mold is the same thing as compost, but it really isn't. Leaf mold has a different makeup, it has a different kind of loft to it, and you'll often find that leaf mold it's a great thing to use as a mulch, just like compost, but you might want to use it more as a mulch around things like trees, whereas compost is also going to have lots of great nutrients that are found in the vegetables. You think about all those nutrients that are found in the vegetables and the fruit that you eat. When you break those scraps down, that's what's in that compost. So they have a little bit of different uses. I really like to use it to top dress when I have enough. I think it's a great thing for that, to just top dress my plants. It looks nicer to me than compost. I think it holds in place better than compost if you use it as a mulch. It takes longer to make, and so I don't always have a lot of it, and so you won't probably see me using it a lot because it's just something when I realize I have enough, I'll kind of mix it into things. But I'm not using it in as much as I'm using my compost. My bin I actually emptied out when I built my new flower bed. I worked a lot of leaf mold into that soil there just to give a nice loft to that soil and to give it the makeup where it was going to hold the moisture because I was using a lot of manures and triple mixes and things, and I thought the leaf mold mixed into that gave a really nice consistency to that soil, and so that's what I used a lot of my leaf mold for. So I need to build this pile back up, and I'm not sure if I'm going to get to that before the snows get here, but definitely in the spring I'll pull all of this stuff that's in the way here out, take out the bottom layer that's on there right now, I'll put it to the side, I'll fill in fresh leaves at the bottom, and then put that bottom layer onto the top. And I don't know if it really makes a difference, but that's how I like to do it. And then it just sits there. I do nothing with it. If it's really dry, then I'll water it, but otherwise it just sits there. This bin that's behind me, I normally keep full of leaves, but I ran out of leaves at the end of the summer this year, which is why my end of summer last batch of compost really didn't work well. I just didn't have enough browns to work with. But and I was building my greenhouse, and I had to kind of level out the soil, and I had some extra topsoil in that. So I actually put that topsoil mixed with some of my compost into this bin, and it's in here right now. So I have a couple of bags of leaves that I've collected, and they're in here as well. But I don't want to be putting all those plastic bags in here. But I do have these bags sitting in there. Now these, one day I was at a local wholesale club. They were dumping bags of onions out of these large bags. And I said, hey, what do you do with those bags when you dump the onions out of them? And he says, we'd throw them in the trash. I said, I want those. And so he went and grabbed me a whole bunch of stuff there. It was really great. It was very nice. So I have a bunch of these, and they're great for holding the leaves in, but I don't want them outside in the winter. They'll just get really wet and gross when the snow falls on them. But they're a great way to hold the leaves for me and until I can put them in the bin or dump them out other places. And I think I can have lots of uses for these bags. But I'm going to take this bag right now, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with it. The other thing that I love leaves for. I think I'm 2 inches taller now from standing back in that mud. So beside me here is my garlic bed. Man, it was a crazy year. So I planted my garlic when I normally do, and normally I don't see sprouts until the spring. But they've really sprouted up because we had a very warm fall this year. So they've really sprouted, and I have some pretty tall sprouts. I'm not really concerned about that. Because I grow my garlic in a raised bed especially, I like to cover it with leaves. I used to put leaves on all of my beds in the fall, and that just helps the snow not pile down and compact the soil underneath so much. But I'm starting to run into a lot of issues with flea beetles, and I just have been experimenting the last few years with seeing if having less leaf coverage on some of my beds minimizes flea beetle overwintering in my yard. But I still like to cover my garlic because I think it's good to give it some good insulation, because the sides are so open, and I want to make sure this bed is well insulated from the top, and just give it a good start and make it to not thaw out. Like, it's already grown quite a bit now, and if we get a mild stint, like sometimes we'll get in March, we'll get really mild weather, and then it'll get really cold again. And I don't want the garlic going through too many cycles of that. So right now I just have a bit of netting. Just one of my trellises on here. So I was just trying to keep neighborhood cats and squirrels and things from digging around this bed that my garlic is in. So I'm just going to move it out of the way, and then I'm going to put my leaves on top of this bed just to help insulate them, protect them for a little bit from the weather. We're now at the point where it's going to be frozen. So I'm just going to spread a nice layer of these leaves. Over top the garlic. So I've waited to this point to spread the leaves on the garlic because I didn't want it to get too warm, damp, rot, anything weird happening in this bed. I wanted it to go through the cycles and go into the garlic bulbs to go into dormancy like they should in fall. This is hardneck garlic. You plant it in the fall, or late summer, early fall, and it overwinters and it grows the next year. But now we're into November now, and our long range forecast after today is looking like we will be probably mostly in the freezing temperatures day and night for months. So this is a good time now. The ground has started to get frozen in my raised beds. This is a good time that I can come through now and put this mulch over top of my garlic. I'm going to put that netting back on to help keep these leaves from blowing away. And that should also discourage any critters from digging around in here. once spring comes and it's starting to warm up, when it's supposed to be warming up, I will come, remove the netting obviously, and then I will actually brush the leaves back so that the garlic bed can warm up and the garlic can wake up and start to grow again. So anything that you have like that, and this works great, you can use this method for perennial plants, any perennial plants, whether they're fruit crops or decorative crops that just need a little bit of extra insulation. You don't want to put like a plastic bag full of leaves on though. You could put something like this that's netted, that's going to have, you know, air and moisture exchange through it, because you don't want to like have no air exchange getting to the plant's roots. They're still alive in the ground, and especially if it warms up. So you want that air exchange. Or you can just build around, if you have a shrub or a perennial plant that's a little bit borderline hardy, and you just want to give it a little extra protection, especially sometimes in that first winter, it can help to do that. It's just take like a netting of chicken wire, stake it in the ground in kind of a big circle around your plant, and fill that with leaves. And once the ground is frozen and the temperatures are going to be staying freezing, and then that will help protect your plant with those fall leaves. And then again, come spring, you would take that off, take the leaves away so that the plant can wake up and go through its normal life cycle. Winter plant protection is another reason that I love to collect my fall leaves. Now don't think because I like having so many bagged leaves at my disposal that I don't leave some laying in my yard. Fall leaves are a great mulch in your yard, especially if you're in a freezing climate like myself. Here in Saskatchewan, Canada, we have like 6 months of winter and it's frozen here. And having this extra layer of leaves on the ground can really help with insulating the plants. Now, if I'd have had more time this year, before these leaves got wet, I would have actually collected them up and used my, I know I call it a leaf vacuum. It's one of those things that sucks up the leaves and it shreds them up. And you may have noticed the leaves that went on the garlic were all shredded up really fine. And that allows for a lot more moisture and air to travel through the leaves and into the ground and towards the plant's roots. Now, luckily, this tree here doesn't have huge leaves, so they're not going to mat up as bad as some larger leaved trees. Certainly, if you have trees with really large leaves, that is something that you should be really aware of and be shredding the leaves down. If you have perennial plantings underneath your trees that you're trying to overwinter, and you're just letting the leaves fall on those plants. This will be all right, and if I dig around enough, I'd probably find some ladybugs and other creatures that are nestled down in these leaves, and they're hunkered down for the winter. So it's a great way to help those creatures out, and it helps your plants as well by giving them just that extra little blanket of insulation and protection from the cold. So yeah, don't take all your leaves off the ground. We don't need it to be like hospital clean in our yards. Leave some of it here. You can see even my plants. I don't cut my perennials back in the spring. They'll do better through the cold if they have that little bit of extra stem and leaf attached to them. So yeah, leaves are great on the ground too. So if you're like me and you're going to want to be composting all winter, even in a very cold climate, it's very handy to have a supply of leaves close by to your compost bin. Right here is my compost bin. I just got it all ready for winter. It's pretty much empty now and ready to collect scraps in all winter long. They'll slowly break down just from the cell walls, freezing and thawing through the winter. They'll produce a little bit of heat, but the real composting will happen in the spring when things start to heat up. And so if I have this bin full and ready to go at that point in the spring, I'm ahead of the game because I have a load of compost going before a lot of other people have even started to think about composting in the spring. But in order to have that happen easily, when it's minus 25, minus 30 out, I don't want to be going around finding leaves. So I keep this bin right here filled up with leaves. It's all ready to just take a scoop out and pile it on top of my kitchen scraps anytime that I'm ready to put a new layer in. So get those fall leaves ready so you can be composting all winter long. Another great reason for collecting leaves in the fall to use in your garden is because then all of this is not going to the landfill. I don't want to see all these leaves going to the landfill, and neither do my neighbors. They're very happy to send them my way. Let me use them in my garden. It keeps their rolly bin for the garbage collection from getting overfilled. It keeps these bags of leaves from going to the landfill. A lot of landfills don't have the microbial activity that's needed to actually break these things down. So sometimes people think if they're sending grass clippings and leaves to the landfill, that it's okay because it's organic matter and it's just going to break down and add to the healthy soil and structure out there. It doesn't. Unless you have a landfill that's going to separate these things out and use them to make city compost or something, then this is just getting added in with your regular trash. It's going to sit there for years and years and years and years and not break down, especially when it's bagged in these plastic bags like this. So find somewhere in your yard that you can store these things. I have mine here piled behind my greenhouse, and just a few feet away from me is my back fence. So no one is seeing this mess from almost every angle that they look at my yard from. Like I said before, I have that old bench that used to be on my patio, and the lid's kind of broken now, so it's not very convenient. We don't need the same storage now that the kids are older. So I've been storing leaves in that for years now. And once I get that dirt out of there, a lot of this will get broken down and put into that bench, as well as into my my leaf mold bin. But it's great to know that these leaves are going to be going into something a lot more constructive and useful in the world than a landfill. So I hope that this has given you some ideas of what to do with your fall leaves, encouraged you to collect them not only from your own yard, but from other places as well. I've been known to be out in my local parks this time of year, the crazy lady in the park, raking up the leaves and taking a few home. Now, of course, I don't clean it out, the trees and grass and things like it too. I always like to get as many bags of leaves into my yard as I can. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.